new terror attack, and authorities are now saying the strategy looked a lot like Paris. Tonight, ISIS now
twin bombings in Baghdad over the weekend, at least 70 killed. The deadliest attack inside the capital this year, and ISIS claiming responsibility.
25 people have been killed so far in that attack, 28 others wounded
Donald
in
J.
this
Trump
horrific
is calling
attack.
for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.
At least 14.
All right, forget about sneaking in. What if ISIS terrorists just fly in? Because we're letting them in.
So ISIS claiming responsibility for this attack comes after other attacks we've seen in Baghdad. Also, suicide bombings targeting a marketplace in the pre-development Shia district. 25 people have been killed so far in that attack. 28 others wounded in this horrific attack.
This year, and ISIS claiming responsibility.
U.S. states are refusing Syrian refugees, and only 7 are definitely saying they will accept them. Why is this? Well, when most Americans think about Syria and Syrian refugees, this is what comes to mind. The U.S. has the world's strictest systems for allowing refugees into the country, and the process takes up to a year, with the majority of the refugees who are allowed into the country being women and children who are considered vulnerable and fleeing Syria because they have gone through terrorist attack themselves. So why are people still so worried about accepting Syrian refugees? Well, media may play a large role in influencing Americans' decisions. Generally, media is constructed of disaster, terrorism, crime, and corruption. People's brains are much more sensitive towards bad news than good, meaning they will not only be more intrigued by bad news, but it will also stick with them for longer. Since people are more entertained by negative media, the media continues to publish news about disaster, terrorism, crime, and corruption. Media has continually influenced people throughout history. On December 7, 1941, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. The word quickly spread through media, and all Japanese were soon looked at as being dangerous and a part of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. As media spread about the attack on Pearl Harbor, so did security concerns about the Japanese living in America. Americans were worried that the Japanese Americans were spies and that Japan was going to attack again. 6 years later, during World War II, more than 115,000 Japanese Americans were forced to relocate into internment camps. John J. McCloy, the Assistant Secretary to World War II, testified about the Japanese internment, saying that he did not think the Japanese population was unduly subjected, considering all the exigencies to which the amount it did not share in the way of the retribution for the attack that was made on Pearl Harbor. 40 years later, McCloy continued to equate the Japanese who attacked Pearl Harbor with people of Japanese ancestry who lived in the United States. Around 40 years later, in February 1898, there was the destruction of the USS Maine in the Havana Harbor. This entered the United States into the Philippine-American War.
To protect American interests from the Cuban revolt against Spain, an investigation determined that an underwater mine was responsible. Americans blamed Spain, and the explosion helped spark the Spanish-American War.
America wrongly accused the Spanish of blowing up the USS Maine, and media soon spread the word with headlines like "Destruction of the warship Maine was the work of an enemy." This gave Americans security concerns about the Spanish, which was their main reason, or so they said, for entering the Spanish-American War. Although, it seemed as if there was more than just security concerns for entering the war. America annexed Hawaii, which gave them access to the sugar, which is a large economic benefit, and also started the powerful United Fruit Company, which dominated the labor systems and commercial farming techniques. Media generally is constructed of disaster, terrorism, crime, and corruption, and influences the way people perceive events happening around the world. Currently, media is playing a large role in the way we are reacting to the Syrian refugee crisis, similarly to how media persuaded the minds of Americans during the Japanese internment and the destruction of the USS Maine.